We are live. How are you guys doing today? So,
I'm doing
let me
fantastic.
Yep, let me get this started here. So, welcome to the show everybody. I hope you have had a wonderful Saturday and a good weekend so far. We've got a really interesting topic tonight, and joining us for this one once again is Mr. Deron McBee. I know him best as Motaro from Mortal Kombat, and during his time on American Gladiator, we've had him here on the show once before. It's an honor to have him on again. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. It's Deron Malibu McBee coming to you live, saying hello to all the bronies out there. What's up?
And we got Cruiser, the man behind the curtain, setting up all these amazing conversations. How are you doing tonight, sir? Hey, Cruiser, are
Who,
you
me
there?
or
Can you hear us?
yeah. My computer's back here. Doing pretty good. I actually went to Orlando MegaCon where I actually met a friend of Darren's there, the Icon Sting.
Yeah.
Uh, and I gotta say, I'm still getting used to the facial hair on that guy. Had a blast at the con. Met a ton of actors and performers there. Uh, but a lot of waiting in line if you know these cons.
Yeah. So, right before we get into it, we got to thank everybody that gives me money and keeps the show floating, including especially the $10 and up tier, such as Princess Heather Blossom, Shady Oak, Autoknight, Emerald, Senko, DJ, Rain, Billy, Alden, Kanto, Mr. Sonic, Alicia, StarChaser, VentureCorp, Willyzin, Vulpecula, Jimmy, J. Yoshi, Raptors, Talon, Evanicus, and Dark Malcontent. Check out all those links in the description. Find out how you can support the channel, what you get in return. Now then, so the title in the thumbnail here is shame effective. This was a topic suggested by Cruiser and helped me set this up here. So we got to find out, Cruiser, what made you want to talk about this?
Well, I'm familiar with shaming. We heard like shaming of all kind, from kink shaming, fat shaming, you name it. And I thought it could be effective, but then I was hearing some doctors say they that it's not effective. And seeing how Darren also helps people with recovery, including food addiction, I figured maybe we should actually have him on to discuss whether or not shaming is actually effective.
Interesting. So to define some terms here, just real quick, when we're talking about shaming, are we talking about it in a sense of like using we're trying to get people to feel shame for the way that they are in hopes that they will change, maybe for the better? Is that what we're kind of defining this as?
To me, yeah, because that's how I always kind of viewed it. Like, we've seen a lot of behavior, over the last recent years of from like narcissism to deviancy.
Mm. His computer froze again. Give us a second, we'll get that back on there. Something good about tonight's stream. If Cruiser continues to have technical difficulties, he's literally in the other room from me. I can just drag him over here and put him on my microphone, which I'm probably gonna do. Please excuse me for 20 seconds. In fact, never mind. He figured it out and he's here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
We're going to take the easy way out on this one, gentlemen. That's right. Super professional here on Brony Debates. Now then, so continue with what you were saying there, Cruiser.
Okay, we've seen, frankly, a lot of out of control behavior over the past few years, and I'm not sure if people are aware that they are embarrassing themselves, or if they don't realize that what they're doing is wrong. And I have to wonder, like, do they need to be, feel some shame over some of the stuff they're doing? I mean, because I remember Brawny, the last time we actually had Darren on, you said you were this really fat, awkward kid, and you deserved all the bullying you got.
Yeah, looking back on it, shoot, I probably like if I was me today, knowing me as a teenager, I probably would have bullied me too.
So, with that being said, like, is shaming effective? Like,
Is it good?
Yeah, and that is where we got into the real meat and potatoes of this conversation because like for me it was very effective, and there's been times where you know, the nice way didn't work with people that with people in my life, and whether it was a student or a family member or a close friend, and their behavior was or their behavior or their addictions or whatever it was that they, you know, whatever negative aspects of their own personality here were having rippling, snowballing, horrible effects on their life, my life, other people's lives, other people that I'm in charge of protecting. And so yeah, then for both myself, and I use it on myself all the time as well. You know, that there's we got people stalking me on Twitter trying to take me down. We got people that hate watch me and all this other stuff like that. But you will never find somebody who hates Brawny Buck more than Brawny Buck. It's just the person does I have people have made attempts on my life. You will not find, so you know, okay, guess what? So have I. You're not special. It's so that's the rundown there. So I've seen it as effective under the right conditions. Big fat asterisk under that. But from what you've told me, Cruiser, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Darren in a second here, is that Darren doesn't necessarily agree with that take. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, well, let me tell you this, sir. An aspect of what you're saying, I can understand exactly what you're talking about. Can it be effective? Yes, it can be effective, but I think there's so much better ways to go around it, because it could also be extremely damaging to people, and I've got a few examples of why.
Yeah, and I've certainly seen it go too far in one way, usually like where people are where, you know, they there's a certain level of balance and tact if you're gonna use it, as well as proper context. And of course, certain individuals are not always going to respond to it. Everybody's going to have a different response to the tactic. But please tell me more about your experience.
So, well, I'll give you a very current experience right now. I work with people clinically at counseling, whether it be marriage counseling or also just straight away drug and alcohol counseling. I'm working with people all the time. Had a couple crisis cases I've been working on. But one guy that I also do personal training, physical training, and things and such. And I'm training actually the pastor of my church. And the pastor of my church weighed, when I started training him about 2 years ago, around 500 pounds.
Oh,
He
good
was a
lord.
very big man. He's about 5 foot. I think he's about 5'8" or 5'9". So he's not a very tall man, but he's very, very, very morbidly obese. And I remember one day, you know, just as a pastor and a friend of mine, I sat down at breakfast with him, and I just felt like the Lord had put on my heart to say, listen, you know, we got to start getting you healthier, because you're going to die. You're 44 years old, and you're going to eat yourself to death and have a heart attack. And so, you know, I could have sat down with him and just said, listen, man, I love you, but you're a fat cow and you need to lose weight. And it's disgusting, because I'm sure, you know, nobody, you know, wants to be around a guy or listen to a man who's obese like you. And then how, you know, how would that work? Well, over the course of time we're talking about, he said, you know, Darren, I can't tell you how many times I've been shamed and told I'm a fat pig. And, you know, even when I was married, my wife at one point said, you're disgusting and I don't like being seen with you. I mean, imagine hearing that from your wife. And did that help him? No, it didn't help him. Matter of fact, it a lot of times drive people further into whatever their addiction is, or whatever their problem is, whatever their pain is. And generally speaking, people just double down and just do more of that behavior. And I've seen it again and again and again happen over the course of my years with training people, whether it's physically training them or talking to them, you know, over emotional issues and things. So my experience has shown me that not only does it not really work over the long term, but secondarily, it leaves scars. I mean, you know, you just said to me, you're not going to find anybody that's going to hate Brawny more than Brawny. Well, that broke my heart that you'd even say something like that. I mean, and part of the problem is that we get shamed, and it leaves wounds and deep scars in us because we don't forget those kind of things. I got beat up in high school. because I was a nerdy little kid, and they were shaming me for being a skinny little nerd. And you know what? I never forgot that. I'm sitting here talking to you right now, and I remember that day like it was yesterday. Um, so to me, I think shaming it can be effective, but at the same time, it leaves some very bad scars, and it can be very, very hurtful. So in the long run, no, I just think it's more detrimental than it is positive.
See, that's okay. That's really interesting because I agree with you in that case. And those are not contexts where I personally would have tried to use any sort of shaming tactic. Now, I've always well, I don't know about always. I've had a bit of a learning curve as during my time as a teacher and a fitness coach as well. And you got to sort of figure out what people are going to respond to on use your empathy. But yeah, like say in the example of your pastor there, had I been in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing that you did. It's when people um project their problems onto others, or that where say take obesity for example, because that's the most common one.
Right.
And people, and I've known a good few morbidly obese people that have a list a mile long of other related health problems written in eight
Right.
point font, and every single one of them are connected back to the fact that they are complete, that they're several, that they're 100 or more pounds overweight and refuse to change their eating habits or their exercise
Right.
habits. And then it becomes everybody else's problem. Now you got to drive me to the hospital. Now it's your responsibility to take care of me while I'm useless, essentially.
Right.
And I have trouble having respect for somebody like that, that just like, because I could not imagine allowing myself to be a burden to people that I care about. So uh, when, and I hold myself to a very high standard to make sure that I don't become that, because like I've been useless in the past and it didn't feel good, but I also know from experience that I have complete control over myself and my actions, and if I am lacking in a way that's negatively affecting people that I care about and the people that I should be there for, and if I don't have the strength to do that, that's my fault. So when other people don't refuse to make that connection, it becomes everybody else's problem. Now I might come down on you, and I'm always gonna start nice, like, hey, you're having these problems and they're tied back to your tied back to your weight, and I'd gladly work with you. Justin's got some comments on that, and Cruiser rather, and so but I do that, but then when it's like, "Oh, you don't understand," or "No, I can't," then the excuses come out, or now we're affecting other people, then I'm coming down harder, like, "No, you don't get to project your problems onto everybody else." I've been rambling for a little bit. Do you understand what I'm coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly understand where you're coming from, but then to me, I mean, as a trainer, and I've encountered plenty of people that have kind of had that type of a mindset. And I just tell them flat out, if you're not motivated to be on a program, then I'm going to go train somebody else. I mean, I don't want your money if you're not, if you're going to, you're going to sit there and spin your wheels and not be serious about, working out. So I won't shame them. I'll just tell them, I'm sorry, I don't think this is a good fit. And I would
Mm,
graciously remove myself from that situation. But I just absolutely don't think that there's a time and place to ever say anything that's going to put somebody down, because, going back to my fat friend, he said his whole life he was shamed. He was shamed in school. He was shamed by his parents. He was shamed by everybody around him. And he couldn't help himself. I mean, and so to me, obviously, that's an addiction. He's got a food addiction issues, and over the last 6 months, we've been working on the genesis of that and to why he's been eating food and using food to comfort himself and all the things you'd use heroin for, basically, and that's across the board with people. And so, generally speaking, when somebody has an eating condition, a lot of times if women have eating condition, they're obese, they have a tendency to be molested when they're younger, and such and things like that. So, in every situation, I don't think shaming ever is going to help anybody. And it may be effective, yes, it may be effective, but what's the long term ramifications of that? Just hurting somebody, and will they really stay with it? Those are my concerns and questions.
Cruiser, what do you think about all this? You've sort of been on either side of this issue as well, haven't you?
Yeah, because I've had, like you, Brawny, and even like you, Darren, I was, picked on a lot as a kid. I was, this very fat, awkward, little boy. And sometime around, adulthood, we'll say like maybe mid-20s, again, get made fun of for my weight. And after a certain point, it's like, why are you even bothered by this? You're never going to see those guys again. Or, if you do, you could do something about it. Okay, everyone's been motivating you. Maybe you should actually do it for a change. And I didn't start, and it wasn't until I got older I started taking it a bit seriously. I mean, I stopped letting those people bother me. But yeah, obviously the only thing to do about my health is actually start working out, and which I have been doing for the past 2 years. Brawny can testify to that. And when it comes to shaming, I kind of look at it as that gag you would see in movies or cartoons, where you see somebody who is just losing it, like they're having a panic attack, or maybe they're acting loopy, and you have to smack them upside the head to get them out of it. And that's when they usually kind of comes to their senses, like, okay, sorry about that. What do we do? How do we get out of this situation? And to give one example, there was a member of my family who I'm going to keep their name out of this. But what happened was that they were at a gateway trying to get into some place. I thought a friend of mine had taken care of tickets, and this person calls me up, and they have me on speaker. They're having a panic attack over this. And I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I actually started screaming at this person over the phone because it was the only way I could get them to snap out of it. And I know I was on speaker because I heard someone else on the other line go, "Whoa." And was that harsh? Yeah, but this person was in Orlando. I was down, 2 hours south. I didn't know what else to do but to make them feel a little shame that they're freaking out over something that's nothing. We can get it taken care of. And to be fair, this person did snap out of it. We got it taken care of. I wish I didn't have to come to that, but part of me thinks maybe there is some truth to shaming. And another big one, and you probably have heard this too, Darren, is kink shaming. Because if you've been on the internet, roaming that, you can see there's a lot of questionable stuff people are into. And I just have to, and when I see some of this stuff myself, I'm like, how can you be into this? Like, something like this can never exist. And I don't think they realize that perhaps maybe they don't realize that this is actually not healthy for you. And maybe you need to make them feel bad in order to realize that.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out here that while there is a little bit of science that some sexual deviations can either be rooted in psychological trauma or certainly further the cycle of psychological and sexual trauma. So, there usually sexual deviancy of some kind. And the really weird stuff that some people can get into are symptoms of a bigger problem, but they don't realize that by indulging those, they worsen the problem.
Yeah,
that's but like they're not gonna listen, especially with the culture around sexuality in general. modernly. They're not. I don't know that they ever would have like listened to that. Hey, you need to change that. And there's certainly not a whole lot of people that can like understand it on a psychological level and communicate why those habits might be those habits or those desires might be harmful. And we are just barely beginning to even try to understand how to help people through that, because the two methods psychologically throughout history have always been repression, which makes things worse, or affirmation, which also makes things worse. So there's that's an entirely different side of that coin there. But Darren, what do you think about what Cruizer was talking about here?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with what both you guys were saying. First off, Cruiser, you were talking about the Orlando situation, where you felt you had to yell at somebody to snap them out of whatever it is. And again, that's what you felt like you had to do. That doesn't mean that's was the best way to approach it. So it sounded to me like you got frustrated and you got upset because they're rambling, and you thought, "Oh, I better snap him out of it by yelling at him." And so you yelled at him, and he snapped out of it. Well, maybe you lucked out. Maybe somebody else that might have been a little more fragile might have just had a complete meltdown on the phone, and nothing would have happened. So I disagree with you on that, Justin. I think
Okay.
that was not a good approach. I think that was, especially when someone's having a panic attack. I mean, my goodness, I've talked to people all the time that are having panic attacks or stressing out or freaking out, and if I go up and go, "Hey, shut up! What's wrong with you, man? Pull it together, dude." That's not going to help them at all. That's a lot of times I go down lower. Like yesterday, I was talking to a kid who was high in meth, and he started getting up, going "F this and F this," and anybody gets in my way, I'm gonna F him up. And I'm now, if I were to raise my voice any higher, he probably would have punched me in the mouth. But I said, "Hey, listen, bro, I know you're upset." I said, "Just take a deep breath. I get it. I get upset too. You need to relax a little bit. It's okay. I'm here. I love you." And just all of a sudden de-escalate the situation. Then the person can kind of catch their breath, get their faculties back together, and then we go forward. And that's exactly what happened to this kid who was high on meth
Hmm.
yesterday. So I think there's different approaches. I said, I'm not saying that there's, sometimes it's not wrong to, snap somebody out of it, as you said, Justin. But I just
Hmm.
don't think that's the number one first approach to take. Now, secondly, when you're talking about sexual deviancy, um, I think we are getting into the area of morality now. And if you're saying sexual deviancy is bad or wrong, who are you to say that, and which moral ground are you taking? Because unless we have a moral high ground, which is greater than all of ourselves, which I believe as a Christian we do, and if that moral high ground, high mark is God and God's perfect order, then we can look at that and say, okay, well, God meant sex to be between one man and one woman in a marital situation for life. And so when you look at that situation and you can say, well, these are all the reasons why that sexual deviancy is wrong and hurtful, and it's not even going to hurt you, it's going to hurt your partner. There's going to have a ripple effect that goes out and hurts other people possibly, and what it's doing to your soul. Unless we start that subject from a morality place, then none of us have a position to say what's right or wrong. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, who can say that the kinky things that people do in sex parties, and I know a lot about this because I have a friend of mine who used to get involved in these crazy sex parties and things, and
Oh,
she was doing
jeez.
that because she had a boyfriend that was gaslighting her, and he was a total narcissist. She loved the guy so much that he brainwashed her into doing these crazy things at these parties that she never would have done otherwise. And now she's so shamed and broken that she's drinking herself probably to death, and it breaks my heart because I really care about this girl.
Yeah.
So again, I think if we're going to discuss kink guys and all this, I just think we also need to mention morality. We don't have to go back to it, but again, unless we have a moral high line that's greater than ourselves to say, okay, God created a standard of this, and the standard is perfection, and the standard is one man, one woman forever for life in a marital situation, then the things that go beyond that can't be healthy. And I can give you a litany of reasons why homosexuality is very unhealthy. And I'm not shaming, I'm not trying to be mean. I love the homosexual community. It's just that a lot of things these guys are doing and these sexual practices are causing grave harm to themselves. They, obviously can't procreate. They can get all kinds of sexually transmitted diseases. And again, it's a horrible lifestyle. It's anything but gay. They're miserable. A lot of these guys are very, very, very unhappy. So that's how I would address that situation, guys.
Yeah, and
So
we're definitely coming from the same mentality there. Like, yeah. I mean, all three of us on this call are Christians.
but let
And
me actually add to that here, because one thing that you will hear, I'm curious to hear how you would handle this, Darren, is when I hear someone say that they don't believe in God, or they're not Christian, or they're atheist, whatever the case may be. So then what would you do in that situation?
Well, you mean if I
so
encountered
how
somebody
how do
who's
you
involved
how
in
do you
sex?
address morality from somebody with somebody that
Oh,
doesn't share your morality?
sure. Yeah. I mean, and that's going to happen. You guys know that as Christians. A lot of people, if not more than half the people or more than that in the world, do not share our morality. They don't believe that. So when you get to a situation like that, then you have to discuss with them from just the basic facts of how that can be a dangerous situation, or if they watch out for how that's going to cause infections or cause emotional pain. We'll say and talk to them that way from a clinical level if if you're knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Again, but if it becomes a he said she said thing, and you're just going to say, well, it's wrong, and they're going, why? You go, because I said, and they'll say, why? Because God said so. Well, I don't believe in God. You're
Yeah.
going to go round and round and round with somebody and never get anywhere, and they're going to feel totally justified in doing this very terrible behavior that's hurting
Yeah, and
themselves and
I
probably
used to
others
I
around them.
used to have that problem too, but I studied a lot about it, and something I've been saying in recent years is I love being a Christian, because whether or not you believe in science, or you believe in God, that it doesn't change what I'm saying here, because the reality of the science of the things, and God's creation and what he wrote in his books here tend to line up. His
Yeah, yeah,
So that's
exactly.
they line up with each other a lot more than
Yes,
people realize. But that's all beside the topic here. But something you did mention that I want to go into is narcissism, and I'm gonna tackle this point in a little bit of a roundabout way. So bear with me for a minute
yeah,
here. And that when okay, so take martial arts, for example, and the arts of self-defense. And when you have exhausted all measures of de-escalating what's going to become a physical conflict for the sake of protecting yourself, or or your charges, your family, your friends, those around you, and these people aren't listening, you have to use drastic measures. Then shame can be a verbal equivalent of that, where it becomes a matter of self-defense, and you
mhm,
tend to have to use it, in my experience, on narcissists and sociopaths that are out there with the sole purpose in mind of just bringing selfishly bringing everything they can to themselves and manipulating other people. They get a kick out of causing other people pain. Really, the only way to deal with a person like that is to teach them severe real life consequences to their actions. Now, whether or not that, and if obviously you don't use violence unless you are responding proportionally to a physically
right.
violent threat. But to turn that metaphor into something in a verbal sense, that's where we have to use shame. Now, and I'm going to back that up with real world examples here. And people I've had in my life, and they're out here mistreating their kids. Uh, and this has ranged in everything from physical abuse to just okay, you got a 98 on that at AP math class. Why wasn't 100? This is why you're ashamed of the family type deal, right? Um, and then they think that that's okay, and you kind of have to find a way to beat that out of them and create some kind of consequence, which is going to lead to shame. And without that level of shame that we impart on them, they're never going to have a way to um, know to stop their behavior. And whether or not they actually care is beside the point. I just want you to stop verbally abusing my nephew type deal. And so, with that was a very long-winded way to explain my mentality on when I use shame and against what type of people I would use shame against. And it's not necessarily to, at that point, I'm not trying to help that person get better. I'm trying to stop them from hurting other people. What do you think about that?
Well, okay, that's again, there's a couple things to unpack there. Starting off with narcissism. That's a subject that I'm very familiar with because I was literally years ago married to a narcissistic woman, and I mean a classical, grandiose narcissist. And when you start really getting into the do a deep dive on what narcissism is, which I have and studied and studied and studied about, and clinical narcissism, that somebody who's got MPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, you can shame them all you want, and you know what? They take that as fuel. They love that. You can scream at them, you can yell at them, and all they think that is great. You're feeding me. It's like drinking a Coke. Okay. You can do whatever it takes. You can give them tons of love. They'll take that as fuel. You can shame them, and it does not affect a narcissist. A true narcissist is going to sit there and love that. You're going to scream, yell, the veins in your neck, you're going to pop out, and they're going to love it. You're giving me my dopamine shots right there. And they're never going to change. I promise you that. That's about the only personality that if you go to a clinician and you talk to them, and you talk to whatever psychologist or right down to a therapist, any therapist, counselor, are going to say narcissism does not change. You can't change them. You can start persuading them slightly through years and years and years of therapy. That is if they want to get work, but most of them don't. True narcissists, you're not going to change them by shaming them. I promise you 100% that that's not going to work with them. Now, somebody who may have narcissistic traits, which, you know, everybody has a little bit of narcissism to love ourselves, but it just depends on the spectrum of how far it goes. I would agree with you, Brawny. I mean, if someone's going to hurt their kid, I'm going to let them know and know in certain terms that if I catch them hurting their kids or hitting their kids, he's going to have to answer to me because you don't beat on kids. I don't care who they are. And I did that one time, literally in a sushi restaurant with some guy who was berating this young child, and everybody could hear it and nobody's saying anything. And this little kid is like withering in shame because this guy is beating on her emotionally. And I got up and I said, "Sir, you're going to stop that right now, or I'm going to escort you outside. And I promise you that's what I'm going to do." And he said, oh yeah, you're not going to touch me. I said, "I guarantee you I am." And I said, "If you don't stop it, I mean, this minute, you're going to get a beat down." And I was serious. I would have taken him outside or done what, or you know, at the very least called the police. But I can't stand that kind of stuff.
You know what? I'm going to interject real quick. Just something I think is hilarious is I don't know who in their right mind is going to take one look at you and think that a physical challenge is a good idea. And it's crazy because like the martial arts people, we have that happen to us all the time, whether we look the part or not. I remember the last time I got in a street fight, it was against 3 guys. And it's like, guys, I am literally wearing my uniform. Are you sure you want this?
And if you look at his IMDb page, like he's played like tough guys. It's like you have to have that build, okay? Like you're not gonna get far, trust me.
Roadhouse looking dude over here, but I'm sorry to interrupt with all that. Go ahead and continue.
No, I appreciate what you're saying. I totally appreciate what you're saying. You know, but so I would if it was somebody like that, or I was defending a friend, you know, that was getting bullied, then I would probably, you know, take a little firmer action. But then I've also noticed that for me, okay, Brawny, I don't know about you, and I know you're a martial artist. I do all that chop socky stuff for fun and for fake. So somebody like you is a real martial artist would kick my butt every time. But yeah,
we got to get you two together.
Oh, geez.
But in reality, though, I have, of course, being on American Gladiators, I got challenged all the time. I mean, I could be out at just to say sitting at a bar having a Coca-Cola with somebody because I don't drink, but sitting at a place where I like to hang out with friends, and I've been challenged where some guy's walking by and he's with this girl, and I'm not paying any attention to either one, and all of a sudden she looks at me or he looks at me, think I'm looking at her, and it's on. He goes, "Well, man, I think you're tough. You think you're so bad. I'm gonna kick your butt." And every single time, every time I've looked at him and said, "You know what, brother?" I said, "You probably could." I said, "But let's just pretend right now that you and I go outside, you kick my butt, and I'm bloody beaten, and instead of that, how about I just buy you a beer or I buy you a drink?" And thank God, every time they've always started laughing, go, "Oh, okay, go, bro, it's cool, never mind, and whatever." And so it's like their ego again is escalating at a 8 or 9. And so why would I want to fight somebody like that? Even I could beat the crap out of them. So what? I'm probably going to get hurt, or I may get hurt. I'll give you a perfect example. Okay, perfect example, life experience, and being candid with you guys. I haven't even told this story to hardly anybody.
Whoa.
My daughter had been with this guy off and on for probably 8 years. This guy is a total jerk. He's a total narcissist. He's a construction worker. He's a big, strong guy. Probably about 20 years younger than me. He's still operating big, heavy equipment. He's a powerful dude, but he was pushing my daughter around. And I kept saying, "Honey, you got to leave him. You got to leave him." And she didn't, and that's a whole nother story. But I finally went over there one day to pick my daughter up, and he's pulling up in his truck. And for some reason, something just clicked inside of me. And he comes up to shake my hand. And I said, "Listen, you're not going to ever put your hands on my daughter again." I said, "That's it." I said, "If you ever touch her again, you and I are going to have some very serious, serious problems." And it just something clicked in me. I took a swing at the guy, just a half-hearted swing. I wasn't really serious. He ducked it, and then I grabbed him. We went to the ground. Now here I am rolling around in the dirt with this guy, thinking, "What the heck am I doing?" And I know enough, martial arts stuff. I got around, got him in this fabulous chokehold, and I was choking him out. I was letting him breathe, and he just kept saying my name again, "Deron, Deron, Deron." And so at that point, I knew the fight was over because I owned this guy. So we get up, and I said, "This is the last. Next time, I'm going to hurt you." Because as I jumped up off the ground, he's still laying down. I'm thinking I could destroy this guy 5,000 different ways right now. He gets
Yeah.
up. I'm thinking, "Oh, I could destroy him." He's bent over, a shot to the stomach, a kick to the face. He's done. But I just thought, okay, no, we already know how the situation went. Point being, here's my point. I injured my shoulder, I tore my knees up, and I looked up and I go, "What the hell was that for?" My daughter still stayed with the idiot. She went back with him. And then once again, they got in another kind of pushing and shoving match. He didn't do what he did before, but I'm thinking, you know what? At this point, it's my stupid daughter's fault for going back to this idiot, for staying involved with this stuff. So, that's just kind of like my real life thoughts on that. And I thought the same thing. If I would have just talked to him, maybe man to man, and said, "Listen, bro, this is my daughter. How would you feel? You've got family. How would you feel if somebody's hurting your children?" And maybe just sat down and had a serious talk with him. I think the outcome might have been better than the way I handled it. Maybe.
Well,
There's no way to tell.
that sort
So,
of that sort of plays into what we're talking about, though,
right.
because if you had done that, you would have instilled, or maybe, there is that asterisk of maybe hanging over this, but it seems like you think you could have, with by instilling a sense of shame in him to a certain degree, you could have gotten him to choose to be more peaceful with your daughter. And I totally agree. Your daughter's an adult and making her own goofy decisions at that point. And it's unfortunate that, you are in that situation. I can only imagine. I mean, I'm not a father myself, but I can only imagine as a father, how that must have felt. But yeah, between you overpowering him and making him think twice about the next time he's gonna get physical with your daughter, or if you had had to sit down with him and made him feel some empathy in one way or another, that's still going to instill some level of shame and prevent further violence in the future, whether it be uh, physical or verbal abuse or whatever it may be. So that's sort of playing into the same thing I'm that the same way I think about it, the same way I try to handle situations, and and I don't know. It just seems like we're sort of coming from from different sides of the issue, but landing in the same conclusion. What do you think?
Interesting. So let me just kind of pick your brain for a minute, Brawny.
Yeah.
You were saying shame. It sounds like you're using it more. Like if I was to talk with him, I still wouldn't be saying, shooting him down, going, listen, dumbass, the next time I'm going to kick your butt, or you realize how stupid you are for beating up on a woman or whatever. I mean, I don't think I would use any tactic like that would trying to put him down. So if you were in my situation, Bronny, and you were to talk to that guy, when you're talking about shaming, what would you be using? What would be example you were talking about? Like, how could I have verbally shamed him to get to the same result possibly that I got to when I'm
I
rolling around
always
and scaring him?
Yeah, I
Go
always
ahead.
start with exactly what you suggested for yourself. I start with trying to instill some empathy, which usually, if they're going to respond to that or not, I can usually figure that out with uh, the question, "How would you feel if it was you?" Sort of deal. And I get a lot of insight on a person just by asking that question. Cruiser,
Right.
did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, yeah, actually, because I think one way you can kind of chalk up shaming is actually more or less embarrassing. Because we've all heard the saying that you shouldn't, spank your kids. But I remember, granted, I know this guy's a comic, but he may have a point here. The comedian Gabriel Iglesias, Fluffy, he was talking about how his son would not wash up, he wouldn't do proper hygiene, and that's very important to him. And he ended up embarrassing his son to the point where he actually started to shower and put on deodorant. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but basically, the result was that he did get embarrassed by all of his classmates and his friends, and now the guy actually does rinse, lather, repeat, and puts on deodorant. Would you say what about something like that that involves children? Because we're obviously not talking about someone who can think like an adult.
Well, again, I've got two daughters that I raised, and I I couldn't imagine embarrassing them to the point where their classmates were saying something. Now, if what he did was if the kid was stinky all the time and he kept saving the kid's day after day by making him change shirts or shower, and he finally said, okay, you can live in your own stink and go to school, and he goes to school and he stinks up the class and his class starts laughing at him, and then I can't blame the dad, because the dad just let him be suffer from the consequence of his own, on uncleanly behavior. Let's put it that
Yeah, basically,
way.
what he did, just so that I can give everyone some context here. It's not like he de-pantsed him or anything. Basically, he tricked his son to thinking that it was a school day and dropped him off at school, when in reality it was Sunday, and a janitor saw the whole thing and told everyone. So I guess you could say it was an accidental embarrassment, but still, uh, part of me wonders if you what can you do to get your kids to listen if they're not going to listen to you, give orders? Should you actually, embarrass them like that, or just do
Uh,
something along those lines?
let me get some clarification, Justin. What was embarrassing about dropping that kid off at school on a Sunday? I don't understand. Why was that
Uh,
effective? What do you mean?
uh, a school janitor actually saw the whole thing and he blabbed about it to everyone. So that's how the
Laughed
whole.
about? I'm sorry,
Uh,
buddy, but what he just took him and he dropped him off at school and left him. What, was he naked or was he wearing clothes? I
no,
mean, why
no,
was that embarrassing?
okay, well, at first he's like, "Get me, Dad, haha, very funny." And his dad came and got him. He figured, okay, that's it. He just a little, he pranked his son. But then it turns out that a janitor actually saw this go down, and when he told the school, everyone made fun of him, saying, "It's Sunday, kid. It's Sunday, kid. Get him a calendar. Get him a watch." So that's
How does that pertain to this kid's hygiene? I'm feeling
it's not so much the hygiene, but just again, I'm wondering if you can really see embarrassing as shaming, and if that was okay.
and if they learn some sort of self-awareness out of that and start keeping track of the dates and then
Just
developing
basically
developing a routine that includes hygiene. I'm
developing a routine that includes hygiene.
okay.
Because matter of fact, one thing that I couldn't help but find so funny was that at Fluffy shows, people actually gave him deodorant gift boxes to give to his son.
I think next time we're just gonna play the Gabriel Iglesias clip because you transferred that story horribly.
Yeah,
So,
I'm lost.
Yeah, let's rewind a little bit. So, Darren, you were picking my brain about how I think I would handle a situation like that if I were a father. I've come close in other ways as a brother, or in other times I've unfortunately had to protect people or myself. So I always started with, I mean, past high school anyway, I always started with trying to get people to to be empathetic. If it's going to work, it's going to work with the question, how would you feel if it was you?
Right.
And then there's usually if I can get people to reflect on their actions and they might realize get a little embarrassed about their behaviors and try to change it, or realize that what they were doing, the way they were treating people was wrong, and try to change it. Now, of course, like we were saying, it doesn't really work on narcissists. You've got to just distance yourself from people and people like that. But there's a certain escalation to it, and I'm going to do my best to de-escalate, and whatever happens next is really entirely dependent on what the other person does to either de-escalate with me or escalate further for whatever reason. And that can go all the way up to physical violence, really, but it usually just stops at you're going to do something stupid and eat a horrible consequence and feel bad about it for the rest of your life and learn.
Right. Right.
And
I get you, Ronnie. Totally agree with that.
So yeah, it seems like we're coming from different sides of the question here, but winding up at the same sort of conclusion in the method of it, and how, and the context, and how we balance, and where our own intentions are. Because I've seen a lot of times where shaming doesn't work, and one example I can give is in my fiance and her family all the time was pushing her harder in school, and the grades were never good enough, the classes were never advanced enough, and things like that, and that just took all the fun out of school. And now in these days she's not as receptive to teachings of the Bible because because her family used religion as a bludgeon for every other issue. I had to. I'm not sure if what I'm about to say is entirely accurate, but I'm going to word it like this: I had to teach her how to eat properly because her family refused to, just didn't know how to even season vegetables. So and then they're shoving these bland, horrible tasting vegetables down her throat. So now she doesn't like vegetables, and I had to work on that with her in the time that she's lived with me. This sort of thing. So yeah, there's shaming in that sense, and what's behind it. And I promise you, with her family, it's not about helping her at all. It's about it reflects on me if you're not perfect, and so I need
Exactly.
you to be perfect, and that's
Right.
not going to help anybody. And then
No.
that turns into various forms of abuse, and then I get involved with my methods.
hmm Yeah, I understand. I can give you a perfect example on the heels of what you just said, Brawny. You know, my wife has, you know, a son who, and my wife's ex-husband is a true textbook narcissist.
Yeah.
And you were talking about how, you know, how she acted affected how her parents viewed themselves. Like, in other words, in her light, if she wasn't perfect, then they didn't look good. And that's very narcissistic. But I'll give you a perfect example. This young man did a recital playing piano, and the kid's a really good piano player, and he's playing. And I heard this, by the way, I didn't see it because I wasn't with my wife at the time, but the kid's playing this piano and he made one, two little teeny mistakes that I would have never known it had she not shown me. So he finishes up, and instead of, you know, getting in the car and telling him, wow, it was a good job, son, really proud of you, you know, you're doing your best, you're getting better. You know, maybe next time let's find out where you bobbled there, were you nervous, but I'm here for you, you know, things like that. Well, he's in the car with my wife, and his son, and then I think my wife's family was there, and he turned around and he just berated that kid and said, you know, how could you do that, and just browbeat him and beat him down and embarrassed him. And the kid just at that point ended up telling my wife, I don't want to play piano anymore after that. His dad hurt him so bad he didn't want to ever play. Just destroyed him. And he's playing again now, but again, he's playing under his father's thumb all the time. His father gets him. It's like he is not a human being to his dad. He's a thing. He's a trophy. You know, he is a piece to be put forward to show how great I am as a dad. And it's really pathetic. I mean, it's absolutely pathetic and heartbreaking because this kid he's a mess. He's a
Yeah.
real emotional mess. So, you know, in respect to what you're saying, Bronny, I wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, and I've got people in my life right now, and you know, the way that they're treating their kids is causing some severe depression, and it's very similar
Yeah.
to the story that you just told me. And they were the same way with my fiance when you know, a few years in the past, or you know, at this point a decade and a half, and and had the same reaction on her when she was a kid. And so now the kid's got severe depression, and and the therapist is trying to be like, hey, you need to not, you know, come down on your kids so hard. And
Right.
this person is going, and turns to her kid and goes, do you see how hard your mental health problems are on me?
Yep. On
Like,
me. Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
on me, like,
Yep.
oh man, that's a tornado
Yep.
kick right to the temple. So it's
Yep. 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 Yep.
gosh darn it, I'm gonna, oh, that my blood's boiling. I gotta calm down
Oh
a
my
bit here.
gosh.
So
Yes.
yeah,
Mine is just hearing it. So yeah, I get you.
yeah. So oh man, you and I are too similar. So when
No
yeah,
doubt.
we got things we got now. I'm curious, have you ever had a client or had a friend or a family member, anybody in your life that has ever like responded well to that? And I ask this because I have, and I feel like I'm one of them as well. But I want to hear if you have any experience in that before I go into what my experience is.
You're talking about shaming affecting you in a positive way. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Or no? um, I gotta think about that, and I may, if I don't come up with anything, then I may listen to your story and see if it, you know, wakes up
So
something inside
okay,
of me.
while you're thinking about
Um,
that, I'll tell my story here because
yeah,
I teach karate. I taught, let me see, I taught from 2007 to 2012, and then and then I resumed teaching in 2017. I've been teaching ever since. I've had students that you know, that I do need to be really gentle with, and they take a long time to understand concepts, or they take a long time to reach certain levels physically, and I'm like, okay, so I'm doing exactly what I need to do. I'm diagnosing. I'm being as empathetic as possible. We're taking it slow. As like, hey, it's fine if it's taking you a little bit longer. The whole point of karate specifically is relentless self improvement. So, and that's going to be a different pace for everybody else. I say strength is a
Right.
choice,
Right.
and strength
Right.
is relative. So like I got one student who's extremely dietarily restricted, and I tell him, hey, you're stronger than me, because if I couldn't have pizza, I'd kill myself with the pizza. So things like that, right? But so, and then I've had students that they learn best and get the most out of my teaching, and it keep coming back for more. Yes, sensei, please. Thank you, sir. May I have another? When I'm like, what the heck was that poor excuse of a cat stance in the middle of that kata? Give me 20 push-ups and do it again. That type of thing. And those guys, when it's genuine and it's coming from within, where they want to improve, and that's probably the deciding factor here. They want to know everything that they're doing wrong, and feel that, and it may or may not actually even be shame, but I'm sort of using shaming tactics to get that message through, and it's my responsibility as the teacher to be able to identify which student is which and deliver the message in a way that will be the most effective. And I did the same for myself to a certain degree. Like I got into martial arts when I've always been into them to a certain degree, but I didn't when I started actually like training formally. It was for every reason that you could name to do it. I was 12 or 13, weighing 250 pounds at 5'6", right, which is not good. And so I needed the discipline. I needed an outlet for the rampant autism that I struggled with at a young age, and I needed a way to defend myself from the people that were picking on me because of my rampant autism. And I like Jackie Chan movies and wanted to grow up and be Jackie Chan. So I'm looking at myself going, okay, if I can't do this move that Jackie Chan can do, then I'm not good enough to be in the movies like Jackie Chan and do those stunts. So I better make sure I'm hitting these push-ups and hitting these stances in the katas as good as I can. And if it's not good enough, I got to do it again until I can. And I'm working on that. And then as I started getting older, and friends of mine were getting into hanging out with the wrong crowds, and then they would get themselves into trouble, and they needed someone who could protect them to bail them out, or they were having a bad reaction to something that they took, or they were having some other kind of major health problems. They needed somebody in their life when they had none who could help solve whatever health problem that was. And I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to tell the stream this. This is where a lot of my Christian faith comes through, because in the times I was like 15, 16, 17, I started having friends with a lot of problems, health-wise or depression-wise. And guys, I promise you, I was pulling knowledge on like exact knowledge on how to handle these situations that I did not have, that I did not study. I patched a guy's chest after he accidentally got cut up really bad. I had never done first aid before. That my movements were not of my own. I was being guided. My words were not my own. I was being spoken through. So that is why I am, and that is a big reason why I'm a Christian. But I needed to have that knowledge and have that strength so I could be there for these people. And every time I fail a workout now, it's like, you're not being there for your people. You got to be stronger, Brawny. Get up. Strength is a choice. Keep it going. And that's my shame. And I've been through a lot of hardship because of that, but everything I have to show in the way that I've helped other people comes from that inner sense of shame that if I don't do it, I'm going to have to carry the guilt of whatever the consequences of me not being able to be there for these people is. So the question here is what do you think of that, and do you have any similar experiences either with yourself or other people?
Um, so yeah, I mean, you made some good points there. I think in terms of your students and they're coming to you, and I love the fact that you're reading their it seems to me like you're saying you're reading their different personality types and adjusting your teaching methods to the way that works best for each
I'm
person.
trying to. I will fully admit that I'm not 100% accurate, but I feel
Right,
like I'm
of
pretty
course.
good.
Of course, and I'm right there with you. I do the same thing when I'm personal training people in the gym, nutrition, anything. I read their different personality types, basically 4 different personality types, and there's a first and a secondary issue, and then if you throw autism in there, that's a whole nother thing. But I'm not a specialist by any means on autism. I'm just kind of learning a little bit more about it as I go. But the bottom line is, I think when these kids are with you, Brawny, they look up to you like you're basically you're a hero to them. I mean, you're their sensei um, or master. I don't know how you use it in karate, but the bottom line is if you're getting on their rear ends, they know you're doing it out of love and care for them, and that you want the best for them. So a lot of times you'll be able to, or I'll be able to get away with, jumping on somebody's rear end and, and they're going to go, ah, he loves me at the end of the day. And so it doesn't affect them, but in a negative way. So to me, I look at that more of is encouragement. There's different levels of that, but to me, it sounds like these kids looked at you and go, man, he's just encouraging me. He's lifting me up. He may be hard on me, but maybe that's what that kid needed at the time. So I think that's an interesting point that you made, and you're right. There could be some fine, like a minutia of differences between the way we're using the word shame that I may see as encouragement. Now, as far as myself, of course, I pushed myself hard. I was a skinny kid that got beat up in high school, and a nerdy guy, and I could never understand why. And I decided to just take that and turn my life around and start working out and get in great shape. But I would set goals for myself and I would push myself. I don't know that I ever said, you're a skinny little geek and you need to get your act together. Well, I already knew I was that. So I just try to motivate myself by saying, what's my next goal? Then after I hit that goal, I go to my next goal. Just kind of like what you're talking about, Brawny. So to me, encouragement is going to go a lot longer in carrying somebody to their goals and lifting them up and helping them succeed in life, because I'm more of a life coach than anything else. I want to see people thrive in life and shine in their life and have the most fulfilled life possible. So to me, shaming somebody really doesn't factor in there, because I don't see how it's efficacious or helpful in their ability to grow and mature and become better human beings. So that's my thoughts on that, Brawny and Cruiser.
Cruiser, you had something you wanted to add or ask, didn't you?
Yeah, let me ask you this, Darren, because I remember you were telling me about when you were in the LA County Sheriff's Department and the training they had to put you through. And of course, if you were to fumble any kind of, like, say, if you're on an obstacle course, they would, definitely hound you and say some demeaning things, which I know, is part of the training. But at
Right.
what point would you say they crossed the line into, like, okay, no, that was out of line?
Did I? You're asking me if I saw something is out of line, possibly, or what
And
would
I'm
they say?
asking, yeah, like, what would you say would be out of line for this kind of a training exercise?
Well, I'll tell you how far they went with me. I might have told you guys this story before, but some listeners may not have heard it. When I got into the academy, we were told one place to park. All park our cars, and they said no matter what you do, you lock your car doors. We don't want to find anybody's car door unlocked. Well, when you're scrambling at 4 in the morning and getting yourself ready to go to, into training, you're nervous, you're not ready, you're getting ready to go in the academy, you could tendency to forget to lock your car. I did that one day. And in my car was this little teddy bear that my girlfriend at the time gave me for, a present, to get me through the academy. And so anyways, I had this cute little teddy bear on the console of my car. And I went into the academy, and next thing I know, um, we were at 135 people there, and the DIs were screaming for me to get to the front of the academy floor where the stage was, and got me up on stage. and they walk up with my teddy bear in their hands in front of 135 people, hand me that teddy bear, and start berating me about what kind of a boy would bring this stupid little teddy bear. What kind of a cop do you think you're going to be? A teddy bear cop? Do you have drugs inside of that teddy bear, Mr. McBee? What are you doing? I mean, they went on and on and on, and you can hear the chuckles going across the whole academy. They're just laughing. Now, to me, I knew what they were trying to instill in me. You were embarrassing the heck out of me, but I kind of was laughing myself, going, I know what you're doing. You're trying to get me to the point where I'll never ever make that kind of mistake again, because you're kind of teach me attention to detail. That was the whole point of a lot of that. Now, other people might look at that and go, I'm being shamed and he's putting me down, and and that person doesn't belong in the police department because they're too weak. So if you start like that is going to start really getting to you, then you need to really, really check what career choice that you're on. So a lot of things like that happen in the academy. Now, if they took that to say, went a little bit up, and then because you got this teddy bear, you are a lousy piece of crap. You're never going to amount to anything. You're never going to be a cop. Leave now because you stink. You're a sissy, and on, and really berating my character as a human being. That's a different story. That's going into
Okay.
shaming that is unacceptable to me. That's the delineation I would make.
Okay, so that's the line then. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brawny, take it back to you.
Yeah, so that's I don't really have anything else to add. He was talking about, what the methods that I use for, when I'm shaming people, and and it's
Shaming or training?
well, yeah, and that's the thing is as I am, I don't entirely know the difference. They they have a lot of overlap for me because it's part of the way I was trained. My first karate instructor was a Marine drill instructor for a long time, and we're talking about a guy who was crazy. Even in his own, generation, where people were known to be crazy.
Right.
We're talking about a guy who got a black belt, his first degree, in a year and a half from another teacher who almost as a rule didn't give out a first degree in under 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're talking about a guy that was that crazy and that good, and that's
Wow.
who my first teacher was. And by his standards, it typically took you 4 to 5 years to get your first degree, and I did mine in about a year and a half. So,
Awesome,
and
man.
that is a little bit of a point of pride for me, I will admit that. But that was
Yeah.
because I was in there all the time, and I wanted to know every stupid little detail about what I was doing wrong,
Mhm.
because everything I was saying earlier, I needed and still do need to be strong, get stronger, and be as perfect as possible. Because because I would rather deal with the embarrassment of or the shame or whatever it is by failing a rep or an exercise or something now than have that ripple down the line to my friend needed me to pick him up and carry him to safety, and I wasn't strong enough to do so because I slacked off. I
Right.
do not want to live with that guilt. So
Sure.
and everything that I've done has and going back even further because of how just weird and awkward as a kid that I was, if it had not been for that, and people, especially my older brother. Now my older brother, who is one of those people who has made an attempt on my life,
Mm.
he did a lot wrong, and the way he was conveying all this stuff to me was emotionally and mentally abusive, and oftentimes physically abusive as well. But I chose to take that and realize my own faults and take it in a way that I could then improve myself. And if it had not been for that shame, I would not have been able to save the lives that I have been able to save and help the people that I've been able to help. And sometimes I get a big head and I start talking about and I'll word it in really stupid ways, like, oh, I beat the autism out of that one kid, or I cured that kid's diabetes, or I cured that kid's asthma, right? And you know, and yeah, sometimes my own ego gets in the way of that, but all of that is true, and it would not have happened if I didn't feel shame when I was younger and if I wasn't being told, hey, you're freaking weird and nobody wants to be your friend, and also you're fat and ugly. Now, uh, you know, and if I hadn't strove, whatever, I'm a grammar Nazi, I should know this. But if I hadn't gone for, like, okay, you suck and I don't like what you're saying, but you're right, so I'm going to get better. If I had not done that, I would not have been able to help other people or continue to help other people. So, what do you think of all that?
I think that you were wise to use the, awful things that were said to you as fuel, to get yourself up and moving and to better yourself. But I would say a great majority of people that I know, don't have that kind of strength. When you belittle somebody, the tendency is that they get withered, they get beaten. It's like you're chopping down a tree. What happens? You chop a tree down, it just doesn't get up and build itself into a chair or something. It's destroyed. It's dead. So a lot of people can't recover from those things if it's been long term. So, that's a testimony to God inside of you and your own personal, strength to take that negativity and that pain and turn it into fuel. But again, I see that's great. I see the positive fruit of that. But at the other side of that, I'd say, well, what's going on inside of Brawny? Does Brawny love Brawny? Does Brawny have peace with Brawny when he wakes up every day? Does Brawny feel joy in his life when he looks at himself? Does Brawny really love himself? Because you said something that was very telling in the beginning to me, is you said nobody's harder on Brawny than Brawny. And I can see that because I'm like that with me too. But are you shaming yourself still because of that stuff? And
Yes. 100% unironically. Listen, my fiance and I did a 4-mile run today. It was like a racing event, right? And I'm really gosh darn bad at running, no matter how hard I train. Right? So I can't run. That's why I put all of my specs into fight, because I have no flight.
me too.
And I hate it, but I do it for her. She does karate for me. I do running for her.
That's awesome.
I'm just running the whole time going, you can't stop. If you stop, you're not being there for your fiance. You're not being right. And yeah, so take that what it will, but I'll be stronger tomorrow because of it.
Yeah. Yep. No, indeed, man. I'm a lot like you, Brawny. I'm a lot like you, brother. It's like I turn that stuff into fuel and push myself constantly. I mean, the bottom line is the people that get to elite level that you're at, or I'm at, we've had to push ourselves. It's not like things were gifted to us. We've had to work hard. I mean, and Cruiser's working hard too. I mean, he decided to overcome his obstacles, and you guys have had to overcome an obstacle that I can't even relate to, because the autism. I mean, what an amazing testimony both of you guys are. To people who will say, "Well, I can't do it because I'm autistic," or "I can't do it because I'm overweight." I mean, making excuses. And you guys looked at your disabilities, or whatever you'd call these, right in the eye and say, "You're not going to dictate how I live my life and whether I'm a success or failure." So, honestly, I have the greatest respect for both of you guys. In a lot of ways. So I just
Well,
wanted to share
I
that.
appreciate that greatly, but there is something I want to push back on you slightly.
But
In that you said a little while ago that I had the strength to overcome the things that I went through. Well, firstly, at the time I was going through it, I didn't even realize I was going through it, especially as I was younger. It was just normal to me. I didn't know any better. The But it always baffled me, the concept of having the strength and how other people seem to not have the strength. And maybe you can help me understand this, because I don't. In that people when people are not strong enough to do what is right, whatever the time, whatever that may be at the moment, whether it's taking a bad situation or a bad deck, a bad hand of cards and turning it into something good. I realized at a certain point in time, and I think it might have been sometime between the ages of like 13 and 15, around the time where I was like getting into all of the fitness and martial arts stuff, is that that strength is a choice. So it's not that I don't that I have the strength or don't have the strength. It's that I realize what I need to do in order to be strong in this situation, and I choose to do that. And it may be difficult now, but the same way that building muscles with weights, or building bone structure, or getting better cardio through running or swimming or something like that, anything that you do to work out a muscle and get stronger, it's difficult now, but in a few reps and with a little bit of rest and recovery, it won't be as difficult next time. And if you repeat that enough times, it's easy. And then, should you choose to continue to do so, you put another plate on the bar. You do an extra couple of reps because now you have the capacity, and that's difficult, but you repeat the process. So
Right.
strength never registers to me as something that you have or that you don't. It is 100% a choice, and I realize that I am in control of that choice, so I make that choice. So with that being said, like, what do you think about my philosophy on life here? Because that's pretty much everything. That's the root of how I come to think about everything that I think about. Is strength is a choice, and it's not something you have or you don't choose.
Well, okay, so I think there's a lot of truth to what you said, and I appreciate what you said. But again, I'll go back to the way people are born, how they're made. Different personality types are going to have different abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. Certain people do not have, aren't born with the, I would say I don't want to say strength, but the tools to push like that in the gym. You know, why do you have that ability and not the great majority of the people? Like, why me? Why will I go as a skinny kid and train and train and train and nonstop and push myself beyond limits and eat, as good as I can and do whatever it takes to get this body so I can do these amazing things on TV or whatever. I mean, I think that strength comes deep within. And where does that come from? Well, that comes from, of course, our life experiences, but it also is who we are in our DNA, how God made us. So I think it's different for, everybody. But to me, for you, when I hear you when I hear you talk about your autism and the things that you overcame when people are kind of shaming you and stuff, I think that takes a lot of strength. I think it takes a lot of strength emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically to do that. Do I believe other people have that strength? Sure, if they dig down inside and believe in themselves, they can do it too.
I,
Nothing's
I've
stopping them.
The root of every lesson that I try to give people is that determination, and also realizing for themselves that their strength is their choice. And I can attest that I have never been able to help somebody who did not understand that, or chose not to understand that. But yeah, that's the best thing I can do for somebody, is get them to understand strength is a choice. Hey, Cruiser,
Right.
what do you think? Strength is a choice. True, false? Tell me what your thoughts.
True. I mean, I'm the one who had to make the decision to get better. I mean, I remember I was talking with our friend of our Silver Quill about when people used to pick on me for my weight, and it wasn't until I got much older I realized I'm the one who gave these people the power to hurt me. So I decided to take it back, and that's just strength of your own will. And so I would think that even like physical strength, it's got to be the same thing.
Now, did shame for yourself? Did you have any inward shame to help you come to that conclusion? Like, did shame play a part in the developments that you've made so far?
I'd say so because uh, when something like that was happening, I realized there was two. I had only two choices: either one, you could ignore it, or two, you can do something about it. And obviously, no one's going to like call the cops. It's like if you get made fun of. So the only thing I really had was to do something about it. So that's when I started exercising. That's when I started lifting weights and learning to, be not be so focused on the guy who does throw some sort of a fat slur at me. And after seeing the results of my liver biopsy, like I must be doing something right because everything came back healthy.
That's great.
Yeah. So I would say, yeah, strength has to be a choice. And we even seen people who uh refuse to get better. And some people even actually give me a bit of a hard time because I tend to like push people into things. Well, it's because I think that you need that push to actually, make that choice. Whether it's, physical strength or like to develop a strong will, because that's basically what all these people who made fun of me did. They essentially gave me that push that made me like rethink things. Like, okay, you got two options here because you know what? You're an adult. You're not a kid anymore. You're not in school. So you can either do something about it or you can ignore it. And I chose to do something about it. So yeah, I firmly believe that strength is a choice.
Okay, so let me give you guys a little pushback. Both those choices you're making was because you were shamed and you were pushed down. Okay. I think a lot, unfortunately, what bothers me a little bit about what I'm hearing, and not saying you guys, but on all three of us, this is me too. We all took experiences that made us feel really kind of cruddy, and we're still having issues with ourselves, with our self-esteem possibly, and how we view ourselves and stuff because we were shamed, right? So I wonder, we overcome that shame because we don't want to be bullied. But if we weren't shamed and hurt, because a lot of this stuff we're doing comes out of being hurt, being embarrassed, and being put down. And so to me, it's like that's not the best motivator. It's a motivator for sure, but how do you heal the scars as you go along? I heal the scars I had of being abused growing up and things like that by helping other people. It sounds like you do also, Brawny, which is awesome. But again, I don't think that we should say as a blanket statement that shaming is good for everybody because it was good for me. Just because it worked for me, I think for a lot of the vast majority of people, they don't get up and start working out. I mean, look how many more people out there are overweight, grossly overweight, drug addicted, have all kinds of issues that they've been shamed and shamed and shamed, but they're not rising to the occasion. So what do we do? Shame them a little more? I don't think so. I just don't think that's the answer. I just think that different people will handle these situations differently, and shame is never the answer to motivate somebody to achieve better, especially if they've been shamed already. So I'm kind of just bringing this back home again
Yeah.
to wrap up everything we're talking about. So those are my closing thoughts on all this stuff.
And I can certainly get behind you on that. I just, of course, with all the personal experience I've talked about tonight, I don't know that I can get behind the word never. But I'll give you this. Well, let's say like 99.7% or something like that. Something silly like that. I'm just pulling numbers out of my tail end here. But yeah, that was excellent. If you don't mind, now would be a great time to get into audience participation where we've got a good few interesting comments from the chat. Are you ready?
Sure.
Alrighty then. So up at the top here, we've got Paladin Pony T is a name we're gonna hear a couple of times. He said, "I see. One big problem here is what if you are dealing with someone who feels no shame at all?" And I feel like we touched on that a little bit, but do you want to expand on it?
Sure.
So we've said that. I'm sorry. We've said that shame is not good, but then we started talking about how narcissists don't have that shame. So what do we do in that situation?
What are you trying to accomplish? I would ask, our friend who's putting that in, what are you trying to accomplish and why are you trying to accomplish it with a personality type like this? If somebody is narcissistic, I can promise you that no matter how much, like I said, no matter how much shaming you do, no matter how nice you are, it's not going to work with them. It's just not. They had something very traumatic probably happened when they were younger. And what happens with a narcissist is truly what they are is they're so insecure at the deepest levels of themselves. They don't understand how insecure they are. So they put on this false bravado to project themselves as the greatest thing that walked the face of the earth. And they have no empathy for anybody. If you think that they watched the kitten get run over on the freeway by a car and killed, that they're going to cry over it, you're wrong. They'll go look at that and say, wow, that's a shame. They'll go eat their lunch and not even think twice about it. Whereas you and I might have our hearts broken over things like that. They don't have an emotional capacity to understand empathy and understanding for other people. So if you shame them, they just laugh because they think you're beneath them anyways. So you're not going to hurt a narcissist. So to your friend who said that, if they're like that, why even be around somebody like that? Why spend your time, being friends or talking to somebody like that who really only see you as a thing that they can use for their own personal gain in any way they can? So that's kind of my thoughts.
Mm. Walter Snackle Fox, another good friend of the chat here, says, I'm hearing that the real problem is disproportional use of shame. Good luck communicating right and wrong without shame, though. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I understand what he's saying. I wish I was talking or him or her about that, but
It's a dude.
okay. So
Yeah.
I would say to him, why does it have to be shame to be a motivator? You and I, Brawny, and I'm certain you too, Cruiser. I get my most success by encouragement, lifting people up, telling them that they're going to be, able to do these, amazing things if they believe in themselves. I'll use myself as an example. I said, this is the things I overcame. I'm nobody special. By the grace of God, I'm somebody special, but other than that, I'm not. And so these things I've done is because I put myself out there and I've done that, but it certainly hasn't been because somebody shamed me to do it. It hasn't helped me become a better person. So I don't really think that shame is a great motivator. I just don't.
Alrighty then. Battleship Agincourt says, um, a hair transplant, and there's a little bit of lore behind this here. So I don't know if you're looking at the stream, Darren, but
No, I can't see anything.
we do tip audience tip fundraisers on the stream occasionally, and we've got one now that's a placeholder, and the joke has always been that I lost my hair way prematurely. No, and I know it's not a genetic thing. Nobody else in my family is bald. But so I'm like, I need to get $10,000 from somewhere so I can get a hair transplant. And my friend who sets up the streams and sets up the fundraisers as a placeholder put hair transplant $10,000, and now we got this guy asking him, why is there a hair transplant fundraiser on your stream? So that's why it's a joke, basically. Paladin Pony T again says, are we using all types of shame here? Because there's a lot, family, friends, and personal. And I'm not sure that there's really any distinction in the types of shame that are out there. They all feel the same at the end of the day. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, and also again, different people that are around us are by shaming us. The level of shame we feel is going to be directly dependent upon the person that's giving it to us. In other words, if my wife would say, you're a really lousy husband, and you need to step up, or I'm going to walk out. There's 1,000 guys that love me, and you're just a lucky loser to have me. I mean, that's not going to motivate me to be a better husband. And it's going to hurt me deeply. Whereas if, somebody who I'm working out at the gym with and just said, you're probably a lousy husband because you're an actor and, you think you're all this and that. And I've heard people say that before. And what they have to say means nothing to me because who are you? I'm, you've never signed a paycheck for me. I don't care about you or your family. So if they can say something like that, I'll look at that as a problem with them. So I think it directly depends on who it is that's saying those things to us and how much it affects us personally.
Yeah. Let's see here. Mega Annie Link fan says, really anyone who rejects, that's their thing now. Really, you preach, you try, and then they get to make the choice. So I think if I'm understanding that this is a little disjointed and out of context here, but what I think this person is saying is that you do your best to tell people what the right thing to do is, but then they have to make the choices. Hopefully, I'm reading the subtext there correctly. But
Yeah.
would you agree?
Oh yeah, I mean the age-old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I think that's exactly right. I mean, you can only steer people in the right direction. At the end of the day, we're all old enough to make, well, not all of us are old enough, but when you get old, old enough to make your own decisions, and then you can't tell somebody what to do. As much as you
Yeah.
want to, as much as you see somebody getting ready to walk in front of an oncoming train, you can't get them to stop if that's what they want to do. You can only give them, the guidance and the love and whatever you can, and say, buddy, you do that, you're going to hit by a train, you're probably not going to recover, whatever. And that's the best we can do. So there's my thoughts.
Yeah, a few minutes later, the same person said, "Man, I think I would have a good time talking with these dudes," in reference to us telling stories about how we've handled business in the past.
Right.
And let's see here.
Okay, Darren, part 3. We gotta have that again at some point, where people can just, where we're just hanging out and people will ask anything they want to ask you.
Right.
I'm sure you've done plenty of those. I'll tell this story real
Sure.
quick there because I've got I was a photographer in nightclubs. I never wanted to work in nightclubs in the first place. I'm a good little Christian boy. I don't belong there. But the only job I could get at one point was nightclub photography. And for some reason, people thought it was really fun to pick on the photographer. Well, the photographer is a kickboxer with state level championships and wearing his $1,500 livelihood around his neck. That's a great idea. And I can't remember this one guy. I took a picture of his friend. And then this guy decides I shouldn't have done that. So he comes up to me and says, delete that picture. This guy's not even in the picture. I don't know why he wants me to delete it. I'm like, dude, I make money based on how many pictures I take. I'm not going to delete it. He backs me up against the bar. Delete the picture. Delete the picture. I don't want to fight this guy. I show him me deleting the picture. He is so far gone that even though he watched me delete the picture, he doesn't delete the picture, and he's pushing me up against the bar, repeating the phrase, "Do you want money with me, bro? Do you want money with me, bro? Do you want money with me, bro?" And I put one of my hands right where the chest meets the neck, and I said, "Let me up right now, or I reserve the right to defend myself." And he gets halfway through, "You think you're tough," before I caved his throat in and bottled him. And then I reached, I did just that. I shoved my palm right into his throat. He chokes. And while he's choking, I hit him with the closest booze bottle I could grab. I don't know what it was. The bouncer, finally intervenes and drags this guy out. And then I leave, and he looks up to me as I'm leaving and goes, "I'm sorry, man. I'm drunk and I like to fight." And I said, "Well, I'm sober and have kickboxing championships in 3 states. Have a good night." So I bet you he learned his lesson. So
Yeah,
maybe. I love how we both said maybe at the same time. And all right. So let's see here. Paladin says, "Can't you disapprove of somebody's bad lifestyle without hurting them?" That's interesting, because that's so you tell somebody you disapprove of their lifestyle because it's hurting them, and they tend to get hurt by that statement. So what do you think about that, Darren?
Well, okay, so let's just use somebody involved in kink or drugs or whatever. And a lot of people that are doing that don't like themselves. A lot of people that are doing that know what they're doing is wrong, unless they're so far gone it doesn't matter, or they're narcissists. But again, somebody who's in a situation and you say shame them, they're a lot of times they're already hurting themselves. So I'm thinking, what good is in doing that to somebody, making it worse and shaming them even further? Because let's face it, guys, all of us know what it's like to feel very insecure in certain ways, and to be shamed in certain ways. And people that are addicted to something have so much shame and guilt within inside themselves. And so if you shame them further, what happens? It's like having a chihuahua behind a glass door. They'll bark and sneer and they want to take your head off. But why is that doing that? Well, because they're scared to death. And so they're reacting that way. Well, it's the same thing with people that are usually, and not always, okay, this isn't a blanket statement, but they're hurting already. So if you push them down even further, you're not going to get a positive result that you may be hoping for by shaming them. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. This sort of reminds me of something I said a couple of times when I was a teenager, and I might have been 15 or 16 when I said this, but you know, I used to come down on my friends really hard, especially when they were getting into stupid stuff and I had to bail them out of some kind of trouble. Um and you know, one of my friends at the time said something very similar to what you were saying, but it came off to me as an excuse of why he's going to keep doing what he's doing. And what I told him in the meanest way possible, if I'm remembering it correctly, is you keep doing this thing, I'm going to keep reacting like this, and these types of things are going to keep happening to you. Mice in a laboratory, if they bite a piece of cheese or go down the maze in a way that's electrocuted, after one or two times of getting electrocuted, they're going to stop going for that piece of cheese, or they're going to stop going down that path. Are you telling me you're dumber than a rat? You know, that's what I said to this person. And
Right.
and I don't know. This conversation has given me a lot to reflect on, whether or not I should have taken that mentality. But by the same token, is this person dumber than a rat?
But here's the thing, Brawny, a lot of people are. A lot of people, man, it's like, and I don't
It's
mean
not
to
what I
be mean, but
wanted
it's
to
like,
hear, Darren.
it's like, listen, if someone's sitting there banging their thumb with a hammer again and again and again, you say, hey, how about just not hitting your thumb with
I'm
that
trying so hard to have faith in humanity, and you just shot a huge chunk of that out of me.
Okay, next question, Brony.
Harriman said a funny quote, to quote, "How dare you have problems that don't benefit me?" Said by every narcissist ever.
Every narcissist on the planet.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Let's see here. Judd Eggs and Spam said, "Just clocked into the stream. Feels extremely relatable. I feel seen. Thank you. You're welcome, Judd." John,
Absolutely.
I've never seen your name in the stream before, so I hope you've enjoyed the show so far, and I hope I've earned your continued viewership.
Yes, you see, both Brawny and Darren are the wise men on top of the mountain who are in the cloak, who are willing to help. They're just trying to fight to see who has the top spot.
Let's see here. Quiet Storm says it's either Kung Fu movies or Dragon Ball Z that gets people into fitness. We're definitely seeing more people get into fitness because of Dragon Ball.
Cobra Kai too. That helped.
Oh God, please don't get into karate from Cobra Kai. I'm good. Oh man, I don't even know what I would do if somebody was like, I want to be like Cobra Kai. I'm going to give you a taste of what Cobra Kai was like, and I think you're going to change your mind very quickly. So,
it's more real than DBZ.
In some aspects.
I've seen their. Just remember, it's just TV. It's fantasy. It's not
I
like
have
what
seen
does in real life. Okay,
I have seen more realistic fight choreography out of Dragon Ball Z than I've seen out of Cobra Kai.
Of course.
Let's see. Have you? Let me just ask you this real quick, Darren. Have you ever heard of a show called One Punch Man? It just got mentioned in the chat here.
I know exactly. He's like a bald-headed guy, and I've seen who that is. It's Saitama or something.
Saitama, yeah. But the reason why he became the most powerful person in the universe: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run every single day for 3 years. Never uses the air conditioner and eats healthy.
All right.
He lost, and the training caused him to lose all his hair, but he became the strongest in the universe. It's a parody anime, but it's hilarious and oddly motivational. And as of recent years, a lot of people have been trying to do the Saitama routine.
I love it. whatever it
Much-
takes, man. I think it's great.
Yeah, much to the chagrin of their knees and shoulders, but that's 100 push-ups a day. Unless you're doing like sets of 10 spread throughout the day, you're gonna destroy your elbows and shoulders like that. Let's see
Yes.
here. And then Rusty says, Brawny's martial arts training makes me think of something. What are your thoughts on military boot camp training and drill sergeant hazing? So you did tell a bit of a story about that,
Yeah.
and it's sort of to get you to realize the mistake in the worst way possible, but also sort of to weed you out if you can't handle that sort of environment, right? So
Right. Yeah. It's all designed, a couple of things. It's all designed to help you have attention to detail, because as a police officer, it's very important to notice the things around you. If it's a crime scene or whatever, you need to be paying attention to everything that's going on in your environment. But it's also there to get you to be disciplined, and they, like you said, to weed people out that aren't going to be strong enough emotionally to handle a stressful situation, because being a cop is very stressful. I mean, for instance, we had a guy that was getting yelled at by one of the drill instructors, and he started falling apart so bad he started reaching for his gun, and we didn't know if he's going to shoot the classroom up or shoot the drill instructor. But they kicked him out of the academy right away, because they're weeding out a guy who, obviously, if a situation got tense, he might pull his gun and shoot somebody because he's falling apart. So that's one very real reason why the sheriff's department and drill instructors will use that time of tactic to train their people.
Well, and the last question we've got here, or comment rather, Walter Snacklefox again, saying, we haven't at all talked about shaming companies and public figures. So let's get some quick thoughts on that concept. What do you think, Darren? Companies and public figures.
That's a whole nother story.
Tell me all of your political beliefs.
There's a fire starter right there, man.
No, we are all about that smoke on Brony debates here. We are trying to normalize the religious and political topics on this show, because we as a culture have forgotten how to do that, and that's why we're not getting along with each other anymore. I will beat that ignorance out of the Brony fandom if it's the last thing I do.
Yeah. Honestly, that's a show that you guys might want to think about bringing up, because we could really go round and round about that.
Maybe
And
that's
that
what we
would
should
get
do
people
next
fired
time.
up on both sides of the aisle, wouldn't it? I mean, I think, listen, people, they set themselves up to be shamed. I mean, I'm sorry, but they say or do such foolish things that you just can't help make a comment about it. But again, I think that really depends on where your political bent is, or your religious bent is, or how you feel about the world in general, about if these companies are good or bad, or they deserve to be ridiculed. I don't know how you feel about that, Brawny, but that's kind of my take on it.
Well, I treat everything on a case by case scenario here, and
Right.
and that's the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments of the Constitution here were intended to be an outline of not necessarily just your rights as an American, but by the fact of you being a human, you have these God-given inalienable rights. And chief among those, very purposefully, was put the freedom of speech, because it is the nature of people who seek power and seek to be in charge and seek to be the king, that they are probably narcissistic psychopaths, and they need to be shamed and kept in check. Otherwise, they will become tyrants, and at the time, the likes of King George III. But in following years, every other dictator mass murderer and genocidal maniac we've seen throughout history, those were public figures that were not shamed. And the same thing can go for companies, and that's because when companies aren't shamed like that, the term banana republic gets invented. And if I'm assuming everybody here knows the history behind the term banana republic. Yeah,
I
no?
I do, but there's probably people on your stream that don't get it.
Okay,
And
so
guys, just I'm running out of phone
yeah,
charge, so I
so
don't.
we're almost done here. I'm just gonna say, Banana Company hires a mercenary military to overthrow a government to benefit their own profits, and it was insane. But yeah, when we don't shame public figures like that, and don't take them out of power, and we let them have too much power, that's what happens. So I'm all for shaming public figures, and
Right.
with that, because he's running out of battery, we're gonna cut it there. Darren, thank you so much for coming on. It's an honor to have you. I love chatting with you. I've
Thank you,
learned a
Brawny.
lot today, and I have a lot. Even though we ended up coming to the same, realizing we pretty much have the same thoughts
Yeah.
about this. We came
Yeah.
from such different angles of it that I still learned a lot. Let me just ask you real quick, Darren. Did you learn anything from either of us tonight?
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, I try and be the kind of person I think both you guys are, that I can glean golden, nuggets from every situation I get involved in. I learned a lot. I think you brought me more around to your side when you said we were kind of approaching it from different angles, which is great. That's what I love about these kind of shows, is because your viewpoints open my eyes to several things that I thought were really important, and also you too, Cruiser. So I appreciate that. I appreciate listening to you, your viewpoint, where you come from, and your wisdom. So absolutely, I think these shows are great, and I hope we do more of them together.
I'd love to have you on. And with that, thanks to everybody for tuning in, especially the new names I've seen in the chat today. I love seeing you guys. Hopefully, I've earned your continued viewership. Thanks to everybody who supports the channel, especially on $10 and up, like Princess Heather Blossom, Shady Oak, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Senko, DJ Rain, Billy, Alden, Kanto, Mr. Sonic, Alicia, StarChaser, VentureCorp, Willyzin, Icanus, Vulpecula, Jimmy, J. Yoshi, Raptor, Talon, and Venicus, Dark Malcontent. Check out all the links in the description. See how you can support the channel, what you get in return, especially being a part of that big, long, freaking name list of names I just listed of everybody who gives me $10 a month. Thank you very much for trying to make this full time. I want to stop working construction. Gosh darn it. Stop dropping your feet off the stream. I'm losing my mind, guys. Let's get out of here. I got to go hang out with my wife. Darren, thanks again for coming on. I'm glad you had fun. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe. God bless you, everybody.
Take care, Darren.